In this video, I'm going to complete the Samaritan model by adding the clasp. So that'll be this piece here, this little handle piece, and then this bar that comes across here. So I've already added a primitive to get us kicked off here. And basically I sized that up. I figured that's not something I need to show again and again, just using the reference picture. Now I want to use the subdivision on axis. I'm going to middle click and drag to use virtual sliders. And I want to try to dial in a place where I have an edge that's very close to the top and very close to the bottom. And that would work, except it's just too low a resolution. So as you can see how fine this is compared to this. So that's not quite enough. So I'm going to keep going until I find something else that looks pretty good. That one is actually, that's pretty spot on. So the resolution is very close. The size of that face compared to the size of that face that's very close. If anything, this one might be just a little bit more, a little rougher maybe. But again, this is going to be behind this in silhouette, so I think that's a good way to go. And these are ending basically right inside the form, so that's very close to where I'd want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with that. Select one of these edges, up arrow, and that'll get the edge ring. So now all of those edges are selected. Now I basically want to deselect everything that I want to keep. So just this side, and then shift right click, delete edge. So that ends up with this form. So that's exactly what I was looking for. In this case, I want to go ahead and clean that up now. That face right there will never ever be seen, so let's get rid of it. That. Okay, so that basically takes care of that. Now I need to add one little detail here. There's a little bit of a cylinder right there that's some sort of bolt or something. So go ahead and do that. Just add a cylinder. In this case, I'll just snap that to one of these verts just so it's kind of in a decent starting spot. Size that down. It was a decent sized bolt, maybe a little smaller than that. Something like that. Looks pretty good. And then again, get rid of the inside faces. I'll just make that about the right size. Looks like that would do it right there. Kill that inside face. And remember to use F if you're having problems tumbling around an object. And this guy right here looked like it was a little smoother. So I'm going to go ahead and I would want to select that edge loop, but you can't because this is an n-gon. So what you want to do is select the face and then Control F10, and that'll convert that to edges. And as you can see, it does the same thing. So then Shift right click, bevel, and then change my offset here. I'm just going to hold Control as I do my virtual slider so I can drive that down to about the right level. So maybe something like that's fine. And then I'll just go ahead and take care of this sort of manually. Let's pull that down, and I want this angle to be pretty soft in here, something like that, because I just want this to round out a little bit. So something like that probably ought to do it for me. So I'll go ahead and try soften harden on that. So that did it. So now I have this nice soft and rounded piece here. Still have a hard edge around the outside. That's looking good. So we'll call that piece done. Now for the clasp, it looks like it needs to basically follow this form about to here, and then it'll be extruded down and then extruded up here. So I'm just going to pick a few of these faces just so I don't have to recreate that curve. So maybe it's even just those guys, although I might just go ahead and grab that one too. And then choose Edit Mesh, and then Duplicate Face. And in the Duplicate Face options, just make sure Separate Duplicate Faces is on. Basically, that'll just create a new object for me. And I'm just going to toggle that selection and then get rid of the other stuff. So now this is the new piece that I just created. And I'm going to go ahead and just do an extrude on that. That seems like a pretty appropriate thickness for that thing. And then I want to go ahead and scale that in. My pivot point's not in the best place. It would actually work fine for this, but I'm going to go ahead and center it just to make that a little easier to see. And I want to inset this a little bit, something like that, because it looked like there was a little bit of a lip on the edge of this thing right here where it was inset. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then basically what I want to do here is pull this face out, because it looks like this face is supposed to continue down at a little bit of an angle. So maybe that comes out to something like this. And I'll have to do the same thing up top. Not extremely far off right there, but something like that. And go ahead and do this from the side now. So you can see there's some perspective at play. I feel like that's coming off in the right place. It's just below the bolt, and then it tapers in right here. And then from the side view, here's our bolt and here's the taper. So I just got to pick one to believe, and I'm going to believe the video reference that I have instead of this image. So I'm going to go ahead and do an extrude on that and pull that out, and then also taper that down. Something like that. And then G, repeat that down to here. There's a little bit of a detail on this that I'm just going to skip for now. Maybe that can go on as a texture element and look fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just continue doing some basic extrudes here. And in this case, just sort of spread that out to match what we have for a form. And then one more time down to here. And this last one actually can just be done with a bevel. So I'm going to go ahead and select those edges, deselect the ones I don't want, so that now I just have those two edges selected. Go ahead and do a bevel, and it's pretty close, but what I want it to do is probably offset that 100% where they come together right there, and then start upping the number of segments. So that works out beautifully. That's very close to what I want that shape to look like. It looks like 3 is going to be adequate to me. That's about all the resolution I actually need on that. So let's take a look at what that actually ended up looking like. Okay, this happens with bevels. I don't know why, but everything's there. It just is transparent. So just reapply the existing material, and everything goes back to fine there. Okay, so that looks good. Basically what I have now is a very minor problem of this was my stopping point for the bevel instead of this being at the very center. So what I want to do here is I just want to collapse these edges. So I'll just select that edge. I'll just select these two manually then instead of doing the ring selection because it wants to grab more than I want it to. And then shift right click and then collapse edges like that. So now I just have one there. You just don't want to have two verts that are really close together like that. So that's looking pretty good. I think the only thing I see here now is the angle down this thing is taking doesn't look right. In the video here, it looks like it continues to angle out very slightly, whereas what we have here is it basically drops straight down. So I'm going to go ahead and select those verts, and instead of moving them, I'm actually just going to rotate them into place. So in this case, I'm going to hold D and then V, and I'm just going to snap that up to around that point there, and then I'll just rotate those out until it feels like about the right angle. I think I may have gone just a bit too far. That's the one downside if you misclick, which I am still doing quite a lot with this new mouse. You end up having a little bit of trouble. And that one, so I got the pivot points snapped into the wrong place. This kind of thing happens when Maya sort of looks through the object a little bit. So, and I just need to do such a minor tweak to this thing. It's probably not worth spending a bunch of video time doing, but so I quit coming back. Quit jumping back on me, mouse. Alright, so that actually looks pretty good. I'm okay with that right there. So I like that angle, and now up here I want to basically do the same thing. Instead of moving this edge manually, which I could do, I mean it's not a huge deal one way or another. I could just sort of move this down to something like that and then do the extrusion, but I will have subtly changed the thickness of this versus this. Whether that matters or not is up for debate, but I just show you this other way, which is a little cleaner. If you shift right click and you use slide edge, then you can middle click and drag, and see how it maintains that volume really perfectly. So you don't have to worry about much. Basically all I need to do here is get that thing where it comes into basically a flat line, and I'm good to go. So then I'll just go ahead and move that out slightly. Again, this did sort of bow off of that middle point there. So this is sort of started coming away from that form. And then I'm going to go ahead and do an extrude on this piece. And again, probably from the side makes the most sense here. And just pull that up. That's probably about as high as it needs to go. Need room for that bevel to happen. It looks a little different here, but again, I think that's perspective that's playing into that. So for this one, again, I probably just want to go ahead and do a bevel across this to just make it easy. I want to go ahead and set my offset to 1. That way they should meet into one point in the center, just like that. And then up my segments, which in this case works fine. Okay, looks good. That's basically what I'm looking for out of this form. Okay, I like it. So now we're down to just the bolt through piece, which is going to be a little bit more than just a cylinder. Let me see what soft and harden does to this thing. Pretty good. I don't see any particular reason why these ones would be hardened, so I'm going to go ahead and just manually take that over. I think that looks good. Those guys are fine. I'm fine with those ending up being. In fact, you know what? I think nearly every one along this side, I'm just going to grab that whole ring. I think all of those should probably end up being softened edges. And just take a look at what that does. So that looks pretty good. That's kind of how I think that shape should come together. Okay. Okay, I feel like there's something a little bit weird happening down here. I just see little weird shading artifacts popping up. So I'm just going to double check my geometry. Basically what I'm doing here is I'll just marquee select some verts and make sure that I don't have anything doubled up. Everything looks fine. Oh, I see what it is. Well, maybe not. Let me just isolate select here. Nope, everything looks fine. Okay, I thought I saw some soft edges right along the inside edge, but everything looks fine. So I'm going to say that that piece is good to go. I could potentially delete out some of these faces that are facing directly into the cylinder right here, but this piece is actually going to rotate out, and it's probably going to be around a pivot somewhere down here. And so if that's the case, then we may end up seeing just a glimpse of the inside face. So I'm going to leave them there just to be safe. And now I'm going to go ahead and add that cylinder here, and this is going to be down X. 10 is probably fine for that, and this one again I'll probably just go ahead and snap that basically into place just to get a start here. Take a look at this thing from the side. So I know I want it to align with that right there, so I'll go ahead and snap it over to there, and then probably that bolt's going to align basically to something like that and then just get sized down. So let me just pull that down. So that should basically put it right in the middle of this. It looks like it's kind of a big bolt, but the middle part is more something like this. Let's take a look at that. Okay, looks good. And I think that resolution is going to be appropriate. That actually is looking fine. So I'm just going to grab this side here and pull it across. And this side actually looked like it stuck out a little bit more. It's tough to tell in this particular image right here, but other ones I've seen, basically what it does is this spring, as it pulls across, pulls this in. So I think that there has to be enough overhang over here to allow this piece to move, to allow those slots to align. So maybe it was something like that. And then this side, just do an extrusion here, and just go ahead and go straight up with that extrusion. So just scale that out and then give that some depth. So maybe it looks something like that. And again, this edge here, I'm not entirely sure what this is supposed to look like, but I suspect if I beveled that edge and just gave it a little bit of a softened point right here, I think that's probably going to be more like what it looks like. So maybe something like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and try my soften harden on this and see. That should smooth it out. Okay, so that's looking good. I think that side is basically taken care of. This side, again, pretty much the same thing. This is just going to have a bolt that starts, or sort of an end cap that starts right around here. In fact, I'll just set that in just a little bit like that. I'm going to go ahead and do extrude on that. Scale that out. I'll just check this from the side and make sure that my overall scale is working. So that's looking pretty good. So G, and then just pull that out. It's not taking that. Sometimes it'll sort of lose your last action. So I'll just do that manually. Pull that out there. Now probably the same deal on this side. Again, I'm not sure that this is the case, but I believe that should be rounded. Let me double check here. Definitely rounded on this side, so feel good about that decision for the other side. Probably fine. Even just doing that is probably good. Again, just soften that transition right there and run another soften harden here and see what we get. Good. Okay. So that's looking pretty good. I think we're actually very close now on this. This piece here has a little bit more tuning. This is the kind of detail that maybe isn't huge, but if we want to add a little bit of extra detail, this has these little slots cut in it that I guess allow these little tabs to pull through. And so I'm going to go ahead and just add those just to show one method of doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and just do an insert edge loop here. And I'm not exactly sure where they are, so I'm just going to do a few guesstimates, and I can reposition these if they look really off. So I'm actually going to add another line just to the side of the ones that I already have, and I'm just going to snap align those in a minute. So basically what I'm going to do is grab all of these edges and align them to the center point, basically, and that'll flatten those out. So something like that selection, and basically snap align those there. So that creates a nice flat spot there. Again, I'll just do it something like that. I think I got my actual center on that one, so get rid of that. Okay, so that looks good. Now I've got two flat spots. Now what I want to do is grab that piece there and just snap line that over there. I'm going to have to take care of a little bit of geometry cleanup on this one, but it's not a big deal. So again, just snap that one over. Okay, so that's looking good. I'm going to go ahead and try and see if I can merge those verts out. So just do merge here. So that did it. Those got merged out, no problem. So I'll go ahead and run soften harden on this. So that's looking the way I want. The only thing is now I've got this extra geometry. You could leave this. It's really not going to hurt much, and this will technically render a little bit better. But these edges on this side right here, they're not doing anything for my form. They are doing something in regards to not having to triangulate this in a weird way. But being that this is an inside piece that we're not going to see that much of, I think it's actually probably a better idea just go ahead and delete those edges out. And as you can see, the form stays exactly the same. Basically now what's going to happen is those are going to get triangulated in a sort of a little bit of a funky way, and they could cause this to look not perfectly cylindrical, but in this case it's probably not a big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at how that lined up. I think basically what's supposed to happen here is, I'm just going to hide that piece. What's supposed to happen here is as this pulls through, that slot aligns here and this one pulls through. So basically they both need to be realigned. So I can just grab those verts. As long as I keep it straight on the axis, it should be fine. So now as that piece would pull through, it would end up creating that gap right where it was needed. And same thing over here. Pull that out to somewhere like this. In fact, maybe it should be more like that. Let's take a look at the reference here. So it looks like it's definitely pushed over to the left, and then that pulls to the right. So if something like that looks like it should work, it would pull that way, and this one would pull that way, and they would both align with the two slots here. So I'm going to say that that looks pretty good. The only little thing that you might need to add here is, if this was going through a hole right here, then technically that hole should be in this piece as well. So I'm not going to do that in this video, but that's something I could add just as an extra little touch. Okay, so I think that's going to basically wrap up the Samaritan. I may go through and do just little minor tweaks here or there, just as I see things that need to be done. But that is the basic model. I think it's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and do another part of this series on taking care of the UVs for this, and then maybe even do some texturing as well. Get into Photoshop a little bit.